Anyway, great to have you. I thought that was gutsy. I kind of like your podcast because you go off into, other topics besides the area of expertise that you're in, which is sports. Yes. You said that. First, the question I have is, what was the reaction to that?
Obviously, I took a lot of heat. A lot of people didn't like the fact that I said it. They wish that I had it. And when I give a damn, I'll let you know. I don't care. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to speak what I believe to be true.
Stephen A. Smith went on the Sean Hannity show on Fox News. I'm sure liberal heads are exploding everywhere on the enemy station. The left hates Fox News. And now he's cozying up with Sean Hannity. Oh my God. And now that he's getting a little bit more comfortable talking about politics, and to me, he's beginning to say the right things, I'm going to be talking about him a lot more and want you guys to hear what he has to say, especially if you're a black person, because what he's saying is basically completely off the plantation. I am sure there are a serious number of sports journalists out there who don't want him saying this kind of stuff. I'm sure there's many black athletes who don't want him saying this kind of stuff. But as you heard, he doesn't care. I have no doubt that his ringtone was blasting the last time he made a video and basically called Dementia Joe a coward. I couldn't believe he said it, but something is up with Stephen A. And I happen to love the fact that he doesn't care what people think. Is he trying to get a late night gig like Sean Hannity, get a show on a different network, and get out of sports? Possibly, but he knows what he's talking about. As a black man myself, I know personally what kind of heat he must be taking. And then to go on the Sean Hannity show on Fox News, well, they're gonna turn up the heat a lot. I'm not gonna waste any of your time building this up. He says a lot here that I wanna unpack, so let's just jump right in and react.
Here now with more ESPN host, the one, the only, he hates to admit he's a friend of mine. You can admit it, just say it. My friend Stephen A. Smith is here.
Of course we're friends,
man. Anyway, great time.
That's a no-no in the circles that Stephen A. Smith travels. Even to admit something that simple, to admit that he's friends with Sean Hannity, has to make people seriously uncomfortable.
I thought that was gutsy. I kind of like your podcast because you go off into, other topics besides the area of expertise that you're in, which is sports. You said that. First, the question I have is, what was the reaction to that?
Love this answer.
Obviously, I took a lot of heat. A lot of people didn't like the fact that I said it. They wish that I had it. And when I give a damn, I'll let you know. I don't.
Perfect answer. When I give a damn what other people say, I'll let you know.
Care. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to speak what I believe to be true. And when I think about Donald Trump, I think about this case in New York. I mean, I'm looking at the Democrats right now. And again, primarily, I have voted Democrat throughout my life, but I'm utterly disgusted with what I'm seeing because it seems to me that they're trying to use the law and the courts. They've clearly politicized this thing with Donald Trump because they can't come up with a strategy to offset the momentum he's clearly gained. In at least 5 polls, he's up. He's up in the polls over Biden, at least 5 polls that I counted. That's the reality of the situation. Despite the counts against them, the indictments against them, being impeached twice and all of this other stuff, he is the presumptive GOP nominee. And
now, he's absolutely right. They are throwing everything they possibly can at this man. Everything. They are doing lawfare, all the lawsuits, the indictments, trashing him on television. MSNBC has a hissy fit every single night, and his numbers are still going up. That has to tell people something.
You don't seem to have the issues in your favor, you believe. So because of that, you're going to manipulate the system as best as you possibly can to avoid him possibly running for re-election again. That appears to be their strategy, but I'm here to tell you, it's not working. It's not working at all. And to be quite honest with you, I don't mind the fact that it's not.
Now, I've said in my videos quite a bit, as a sports person, I'm a sports person. You never want to avoiding your competition. You never want to be in that position where you're afraid of your competition, where you're trying to find a way to do the Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding thing, where you just want to take her out of competition. That's what the Dementia Joe's team is trying to do. They're trying to do the Tanya Harding kneecap They're trying to just eliminate Donald Trump from the competition altogether. They don't want to compete against him. They don't think they can beat him. They don't think that. We know he can't beat him. There's no way Poo Poo Diaper Joe could beat Donald Trump in a fair fight. Just not going to happen. So he's absolutely right there.
I work it because I might not be a supporter of Donald Trump, but I want him to lose the right way. I want him to lose because you have better ideas and you make your case to the American people better than he does. That's why I want him to lose. I don't want him to lose the way they're trying to make him lose, because I actually think that the case in New York City is pretty weak, if not flat out bogus.
Flat out bogus. If he can recognize it, and he's a self-proclaimed, liberal, and that he voted for Obama and he voted for Biden, and he's seeing this and going, this is crap. This is absolute crap. Why would you put yourself in this kind of a position? And this is what they're doing, and they're turning a lot of people off. Don't be surprised. He'll never admit it. Like I said many times, I don't think Stephen A. Smith would ever admit in public that he's voting for Donald Trump. But when he goes in that booth and he closes the curtain behind him, nobody likes to bet on losers. And right now, Poo Poo Diaper Joe is a loser.
You remember John Edwards? If you remember Gary Hart? If you remember some of the things that Clinton has gone through? Now we're going to talk about a hush money case that took place while he was running for election in 2016, but he was in office until 2020, and now here you are in 2024, months before another election, and he's the presumptive GOP nominee, and this is what you're trying to do? It's a disgrace.
It is an absolute disgrace. I talked to some of my relatives who still live up north in Connecticut and New York, and they, who have voted Democrat their entire life, never even thought of voting for a Republican. Now don't look at Donald Trump as a Republican. See, that's the big thing. There's a lot of people now who are black and Hispanic who aren't looking at this as Democrat versus Republican. This is now Donald Trump, the guy. They understand where he's coming from. They understand what he's going through. And Stephen A. Smith is going to touch on that real soon.
It's weak, it's pathetic, and somebody needs to say it. The Democrats need to come up with a better strategy, because this ain't working.
Let me ask you this. We look at polls. Polls are always broken down demographically, and you see this major erosion in the Democratic base for Biden. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, young people, suburban women, for example. I mean, numbers that we've never seen before. In terms of a Democrat. If he doesn't get his base back, which I would argue he's been trying to do, starting with the State of the Union and his jacked up address, he's got no shot. And if Donald Trump can hold on to 5, 10, 15% of the numbers that he has now, he will win the next election.
Now, hold on a second. I have to understand, he's talking 5, 10, 15%. The numbers right now show that Donald Trump is getting in excess of 30% of the black vote. 30%. No Republican has ever gotten that much of the black vote. He barely won the last election and only got, 88%, talking about Poo Poo Diaper Joe, as I've said to you. So now it's starting to set in. Reality is starting to set in that mathematically, and you have to understand this, mathematically, without there being a lot of shenanigans, there is no mathematical way that Poo Poo Diaper Joe can actually beat Donald Trump. It just doesn't exist. That path doesn't exist. Forget every single poll that you're watching. It's all BS. Everybody who is on the street level knows it's BS, because they're all talking to their friends and going, we got nothing to do with this guy. We don't want to be a part of this guy. You know who else knows it? Even young kids know it.
I've never thought I'd see a time when I'm going through a neighborhood or a rural town in the West or something, to see big signs that have a Trump sign in the middle that says F Biden, and having a little kid standing with his middle finger, 7 years old, 8 years old. Well, I promise it happens all the time.
Can you believe that Poo Poo Diaper Joe says, I hear it all the time? Yeah, get it through your head. Get used to it. You're going to keep hearing it all the time. People don't like you. People don't like what you're doing. People don't like that you're invading us with these newcomers. People don't like that you're giving gazillions away to some country they can't find on a map. And you're wondering You're actually wondering why people at home who are hurting are thinking to themselves, we got to get rid of this guy? How obtuse of an entire organization does Biden have right now? How can he be so far out of touch? Maybe, obviously, that's why they're trying to put Donald Trump in jail, but I don't care if he runs the country from Rikers. It doesn't matter to me. Anything would be better than this husk of a man shuffling along, trying to pretend as though he is in charge, when we all know there's no possible way that he is. So unless you're going to pull a lot of shenanigans at the, election day, there's no chance mathematically that you can win. None.
Why is that happening? That's my question.
Big answer.
Well, first of all, the streets don't seem safe, and people want safety. We can sit up there and lament, quote unquote, law and order, which is what Donald Trump used to verbalize. But the fact is, the American people like law and order. We want our streets safe. We want to make sure that you've committed a crime, you get to go to jail. You don't sit.
Which I don't understand how people up there in Washington don't understand that. We don't want that crap in our neighborhood. Luckily, Robin and I, we live in a gated community. We've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to live in a gated community. Not everybody is in a gated community. People can't go to church without getting thrown downstairs. Nobody wants that. Left or right. If a woman looks at you and says, I don't feel safe, then you know something's really, really wrong. Really wrong. And at this point, I don't think people feel safe enough to venture out to some of the things they used to do.
Up there and get arrested and you're out the same day. You don't want to assault people and you're out the same day. That's number one. Obviously, number two, the economy, which is usually number one, because people don't understand this when it comes, especially to black folks. Okay, let me tell you something right now, Sean. When you talk about the economy, to black folks, that means money. To everybody, it means money, but especially to us, okay, who are no longer the dominant minority in this country. Those are the Latinos. When we talk about the economy, we're not talking about, the state of affairs economically, or even the job participation rate. We're talking about the money that you keep in your pocket. When you go to the gas station and it's exorbitant prices, when you go to the supermarket and milk and bread and cheese and all of this other stuff is exorbitantly high compared to what it once was, that is a red flag to
Unbelievable. Why don't people in Washington understand that? You can't continue to tell everybody everything's fine. Bidenomics is awesome. It's working. But hey, listen, I'm paying still $3.80, $3.90 a gallon for gas. I'm spending $200 for food at McDonald's. Maybe not 200 easy for a family of four to go to McDonald's. Most people can't go to the movies anymore. I mean, seriously, think about it. Things that you took for granted, like going to the movies, not that like there's anything Hollywood's putting out that's worth it, but if you wanted to take your kids to the movie and have a family night, you can't do it. It's too expensive. But you're telling us and blowing smoke up people's butt that everything is fine. That's not true. People understand the BS. You can't basically gaslight people to the point where they can just make it poof, go away. They see it every single day. And people are working 2 jobs to try and make ends meet. It's crazy.
A lot of folks, because the money you keep in your pocket is what tells you whether or not the economy is flourishing or not. So those are just a couple of components that come into the equation. And dare I say something that will probably be the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying.
Now understand what he just said. That was the thing that drove Charles Barkley crazy. Charles Barkley threatened to punch us black men in the face, right in the face, if he ever saw us with a Donald Trump mugshot t-shirt, because he was just completely over the top mad because Donald Trump dare compare his plight. And then he got together with Stephen A. Smith and said the same thing. Now Chuck Barkley's show is canceled and Stephen A. saying, hey, Donald was right. Yeah, he was right. Absolutely.
He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have. And that's what he articulated. As unpopular as it was, as much as we didn't like to hear it, it's the truth.
That's the first time I've heard him say what Donald Trump said is the truth. Understand how bombastic it is what he just said. Now understand this as well. Stephen A. Smith, monstrous audience. Sean Hannity has a monstrous audience. I was building a decent size audience here until the powers that be decided they wanted to suppress me, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to fight through it. We're getting the word out. We're showing people right now, this isn't the way life is supposed to be. Forget your past thoughts about certain people, Donald Trump. Forget that. At this point, you have to begin thinking about what's best for your life, what's best for your family's life. And what Poo-Poo Diaper Joe has been doing is not best for your family's life. There's no denying it. And with these guys, these two powerhouses talking about this on Sean Hannity's show, they probably reached tens of millions of people. And Stephen A. Smith right now is going to have to watch himself because there's a lot of sports figures out there who don't like what he's saying. I mean, he's been a sports journal for 30 years or whatever it is. There's a lot of people who take shots at him. There's a lot of people who call him a clown. A lot of people out there who just don't want to see Stephen A. succeed in his side venture, which is the Stephen A. Show on YouTube. But I think he's got much bigger ideas as to where he wants to go. And at this point, I applaud him. I absolutely applaud him. Let me see if I got my little button. And there it is. I absolutely applaud Stephen A. Smith for taking that out there, taking that message to the streets.
And there's no way around it. Those are all contributing factors to the state of affairs with the slippage that appears to be taking fold when it comes to President Biden, unfortunately.
You're talking about racial disparity in our justice system. And you know what, Stephen A., there has been. You're 1,000% right. Now, just for the record, when I was on your podcast, you're like, Hannity, you don't even take a breath. You don't even let me ask a question. I let you answer in full tonight. I just want that for the record so that you remember the next time we have a conversation.
It's a miracle.
A miracle.
That's why I left that part in. I thought it was funny because if any of you ever watched Sean Hannity's show, he won't shut up. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, at least he knew. Give the guy the question and then shut up. Stephen A. Smith, the experienced professional that he is, took it and ran with it. So let me know what you think about Stephen A. Smith's message. I know you've heard a little bit of it before, but this, to me, was bombastic. He actually admitted that Donald Trump relating himself to black people because of what he's going through is absolutely right. That is going to set off tremors, tidal waves across the liberal blogosphere and broadcast networks. They can't ignore it. He's too big for these people to ignore. In the interim, tomorrow, Donald Trump has a big, huge rally, the first rally since he's been on trial in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'd love for you to join me. I'm going to do a live broadcast. Haven't done a live broadcast of one of his rallies ever. I used to do them with football all the time, but this is going to be the first time that I actually do a rally, a live broadcast of a Donald Trump rally. I'd love for you to join me. Just click here to get notified when I go live at 6:30 tomorrow night. Talk to you soon.